Yeah, the Bnei Israel, these are the journeys of Bnei Israel. They left Egypt with their in their hosts, meaning, let's see, Vosam, how does he translate the hosts, right? Their legions, a good word. Under the jurisdiction of Moshe V'Aaron. Vayichtov Moshe es Motzeim v'Lamaseim al pi Hashem v'Ilu Maseim l'Motzeim. These are their journeys, and it starts telling you, Vayisu me Ramses b'chodesh Harishon, they left Ramses. Chamisha Soyam b'chodesh Yom Mimachras al-Pesach, Yatzu b'nei Yisrael b'yad Rama le'inei kol Mitzrayim. They left out in full view of the Egyptians. So what's going on over here? Torah goes and it reviews the various journeys of the Bnei Israel. Now, the first issue here is, why does the Torah tell us this? We're going to see that there are 42 different locations, and the Torah is going to name all of them. At a deeper level, each of these names has a meaning. There are certain things that these names allude to. But the basic idea here is, at the various stops the Jewish people made, there were either good things happen or bad things happen. And the Moshe Rabbeinu, before he dies, he wants to reinforce the concept of what's called schar v'onesh. Schar v'onesh means you get rewarded for the good things you do and punished for the not good things that we do. So Moshe Rabbeinu, before he dies, that is a fundamental belief in Judaism, that there's schar v'onesh. That there's what we call accountability. There is accountability for what we do and positive rewards, and there's accountability that we're not free. The American Constitution begins with a Bill of Rights. The Torah does not have a Bill of Rights. The Torah has a Bill of Obligations. We have rights. We have obligations. And the obligation is not like the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Al korchacha atono, the person's born against their will. I mean, the person wasn't asked. The person wasn't asked if he wants to, it's like when you're playing cards, you say, well, deal me out of this hand. A person does not have a choice in Judaism to be dealt out of this hand. Born Jew, he's got an obligation. And nobody likes to be told what to do, but we are told what to do, and therefore we have to do it. And it's God telling us what to do. So the first thing the Torah wants to reinforce is the concept of what we call schar v'onesh, number one. Number two, there is the idea of Eile Maseh B'nai Yisrael. So first of all, if you want to see something pretty neat, it's going to talk about the journeys of the Jewish people. Now, journeys obviously alludes to exile. When you're journeying, you're in exile. When you're moving around, you're not in one place. So the very first words of the Parsha, Eile Maseh B'nai Yisrael. Aleph in the word Eile stands for Edom, which is the Roman exile, which is the exile we're in right now. Mem stands for Madai. Persia and Madai was one of the exiles of the Jewish people, the Persian Median exile. Beis stands for Bavel, Babylonian exile. And Yud stands for Yavan, which is the Greek exile. So you have in the very first four words of the Parsha, right where it talks about the Jewish people moving around, you have the concept of exile alluded to, and which is, they talk about the wandering Jew. And the reason we're called the wandering Jews is because we've been wandering for a long time. And not only we wander, somebody once pointed out, Rav Gifter pointed this out, and I think Rav Yankiv Kamenetsky also, Rav Gifter pointed out that any Jewish town you go to, any town where there are Jews, Johannesburg, Toronto, Chicago, London, it doesn't matter where you go, there's always the old Jewish neighborhood, and now there's the new Jewish neighborhood. What was wrong with the old neighborhood? So it looks like, from a superficial point of view, it looks like the reason there's an old neighborhood is because various undesirables may have moved in, the neighborhood changed, and Jews moved around. But that's like, what came first, the chicken or the undesirables? You see, it doesn't work that way. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to move around. Therefore, the undesirables were brought in. That means it's a reminder to us that even when we're in exile, we're also in exile. Even if we get comfortable in exile, we're moved around in exile also. We're moved around from place to place. And it's unbelievable. Everywhere you go, you will find there's the old Jewish neighborhood with the old shuls where somebody went and rescued the mezuzahs from the doors and all that. It's always there that, we were on the west side, now we're on the east side. We're on the south side, now we're on the north side. It's always like that all day, everywhere you go. And there's no accident. There's no accident. That's because the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants us to know that even in Golus, we should realize while we are in exile that we're in exile. And sometimes Jews get very comfortable. You build a nice house with a swimming pool and a tennis court, and the next thing you know, you got to move because the neighborhood has changed. And that's a reminder. These are the journeys of the Jewish people. We're always going to be in exile, the wandering until the ultimate redemption. So again, Aleph is Edom, Mem is Madai, which is Paras and Madai. Beis is Bavel, and Yud is Yavan. And even the Yavan exile, which was the irony of the Greek exile, Hanukkah is coming up whenever it comes up. So when is Hanukkah? Usually around December. What month are we in? July. Okay, we could call that coming up. And that's close enough. And what do you call it? The Greek exile is ironic because it was an exile in Eretz Israel. We were in Israel at the time. All the other exiles were out in the other countries. Greek exile was the time of second Beis Hamikdash, and we're living in Eretz Israel. So it's also called exile because we were not under our own jurisdiction. We were under their jurisdiction. And that's why Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, no less an authority than Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, he said, just about 20 minutes away, there's a golden dome. There's a big golden dome over there. And he said that golden dome is not such a bad thing. Dome on the base of Mikdash and the sun on the Temple Mountain. He said it's not such a bad thing because that golden dome is a reminder to us that we're in exile. Even right now, when Eretz Israel, we live in Israel, we're all in Israel, even if you officially made Aliyah. Yeah, we're here. We're in Israel, right? It's all good. We could eat falafel and say, Yalla, bye, what more do you need? No. We're very much in exile, very much under the dictates of all the other, here you got 25 countries or whatever it was who all decided Israel has to end the war in Gaza now. The whole world's against us. We're still very much in exile. Nobody said anything to Putin about ending a war. Nobody said anything to the Houthis or Tutsis or Tutsis or Hutsis, whatever they're called, about ending war. No, only Israel has to end their war. Everybody else is allowed to go bomb indiscriminately. Nobody. So the idea of being in Eretz Israel is a great thing for us if we could be here and we could grow from it. But we have to know that we're still very much in exile. I actually had a friend in high school who he said he couldn't wait for Mashiach to come because he wanted to see the Golden Dome explode. Yeah, he's in prison now. But that was his. That's why he was a very spiritual guy. He couldn't wait for Mashiach to come. I had another guy whose goal in life was to become a shepherd. He said then you could lie in the grass, smoking grass all day. That was his. He's also in prison. Number two. Number three is the idea of Elem Maseh B'nai Yisrael. I've mentioned this many times, gentlemen. There are two types of Jews. I'm talking about observant Jews. There are two types of observant Jews. How do you break them down? What are the categories of two types of observant Jews? What are they? There are those who are growing and those who are stagnating. We were put in this world to grow, to move. Eile Maseh B'nai Yisrael. These are the journeys of the B'nai Yisrael. We were put in this world to journey. Religion is not a destination. Religion is a journey. We were put in this world to move. We were put in this world to grow. And a person who dies, what they put a tombstone, because a stone doesn't grow. That means his growth is finished. His growth is completed. When a person dies, why do you put a monument up there? They put a stone. A stone doesn't grow. There's no, what's that? Immovable. It's not going anywhere. It's not a tree. It's not growing. And therefore, Eile Maseh B'nai Yisrael alludes to the idea that we're meant to be growing. Okay. Then it says, Biyad Moshe v'Aaron. It says they traveled and they journeyed Biyad Moshe v'Aaron. Now, this is one of the most important points we'll ever discuss. What the Torah is telling you over here is, on the one hand, we have to grow. On the other hand, we have to improve ourselves constantly. On the other hand, we have to have a Moshe and an Aaron to guide us. We obviously don't have Moshe and Aaron themselves, but we have Torah leaders and Torah leadership. And a person in the challenge of let's face it, there are a lot of questions that come up. Just today, a young man asked me, a young man who himself is very much focused on growth. He just today asked me about how important what is the right timing in order to take on stringencies in halacha? And it's a very important question to ask. That sometimes a person says, "Ooh, this feels like a good thing. Maybe we'll adopt this stringency. We'll take on this stringency." You have to consult with people who have more Torah experience, more life experience, and a person has to make decisions. Sometimes a person is dating a girl. He wants to know, is this a girl who is worth? Is this a good idea to marry this girl? Right. So somebody could tell you what the pluses, what is important, or what we call what's the ikr and what's the tafel. Sometimes the guy thinks, well, what's something that's significant may be very insignificant. I just had a case this week where somebody told me that a guy who's kind of dating a girl, and something that he found out about her, which he thought was earth-shattering significant, and I told him that it's actually very insignificant, and certain things are much more significant that he didn't realize how significant they are. Just something as simple as a guy, I've been asked once in a while, a guy's going out with a girl who's going into nursing school or going to become a doctor. So, there's nothing wrong with marrying a girl who's going to be a nurse or a doctor. If she had a record if she had done time in prison for embezzlement, I would tell her it's probably not the best girl for you. But a girl's going to become a nurse. It's not the end of the world. It's not the beginning of the world. It's not, but what I do tell the guy is, you just have to realize what's involved if you're married to a nurse or to a woman who's a doctor. You have to realize that there are responsibilities that she have. If you're marrying her while she's going through medical school, then there's very little time to do anything to develop a relationship because you're always studying. And when you marry a nurse, then they get it half the time she's on either the day shift, the night shift, the afternoon shift, and you just have to realize what you're getting into. The decision then you have to make. You then have to make the decision and realize, well, do I want to get involved with this or not? There are certain benefits also. If she's a doctor, she's going to earn a certain amount of money. But you just have to realize but you have to consult with people who have more life experience, more Torah experience. The combination of an elderly Torah scholar is the best person that you could have. I'll tell you the truth. You know how I ended up at Ohr Somayach? Not that you care. But I'm going to tell you anyway. I was in Kolo, and I'd been in Kolo for 5 years. And at a certain point, the Kolo was learning one subject in the afternoon. They were studying one subject. And in the morning, I was learning what the Kolo was learning. And I wanted to study a different subject in the afternoon. And the head of the Kolo didn't want me to do something different. And I did want to do something different. And I felt that, but not necessarily because it feels good. It doesn't mean it's the right thing. So I couldn't ask him because I felt that he has a vested interest. And I couldn't trust myself. So I decided that I have a vested interest. I decided to consult with somebody completely not attached to the Kolo, one of the main mashgichim. A mashgiach is a spiritual supervisor of a yeshiva. So one of the biggest mashgichim in Eretz Yisrael. And I decided I'm going to ask him. Before I went to ask him, my wife said to me, she'll only let me ask him if I promise to do whatever he says. Because she knew me well enough to know that if I didn't hear what I wanted to hear, I wouldn't do. I would go just find somebody else who would tell me that. So I promised. I said, yeah, I'll do whatever he tells me. So I went and I spoke to this man. And the first thing he did was very interesting. I went to speak to him. He was actually teaching here at Ohr Somayach at one point. He didn't know me. I was learning Kol. He didn't really know me. He happened to know my parents from back in the day. But he didn't know me at all. I met him. And I asked him my question, should I do A or should I do B? And so instead of giving him an answer, just to show you what kind of, when you're going to consult with people like this, the first thing he said to me is, give me a list of references. How do you like that? And we weren't even going to suggest as a shidduch for each other. He just wanted a list of references so he could check me out. And I gave him I have my father, the Rosh Kolo, a couple of my chavrusas, a couple of friend people. And he said, come back in a week. And he called every single person on the list, spoke to every single person. A couple of them had great length. Then I came back a week later, and he said to me, okay, you asked me if you should do A or B. I tell you, you should do C, which was to get involved at least part-time in teaching. I was devastated. It wasn't anywhere in the, it wasn't on the cards at all. At that point, it wasn't in the cards. And he felt that based on what he had investigated, he felt that would be best for me, for my own growth, to get involved in teaching. I was devastated. I was very upset. And the only reason that I did it is because I promised my wife I would listen to him. That was the only, otherwise for sure I would not have listened to him, for 100%. That's when I started getting involved with Ohr Somayach. Some people say, well, and how did it work out? Is it like you know, I mean, say, it's the best thing I ever did, right? I don't know. I'll find out after 120 years if it was a good thing. One thing I could tell you, is I did what I had to do. That I'm secure in the knowledge that there's nothing more I could possibly do as an individual, because we don't have prophets nowadays. If you go to a Navi, you know, back in the day when you went to a Navi was a good thing, because the Navi would look into your soul and tell you exactly what your purpose is in this life. How do you like that? That would be good. He also give you a tip on the market. Yeah, a Navi was a good thing. So in the absence of a Navi, what do? I need guidance. What is my purpose in this world? What am I supposed to be doing? Every one of us is asking this question. And the answer is that we only have Torah scholars and Das Torah to ask, because they got the wisdom of Torah to be able to analyze and tell us. And so that much I could, what would have happened if I would have done it the other way? Then by today I might be a multimillionaire had I not listened to him. Maybe. I don't know how exactly, but you know. Yeah, I do. I would have robbed the bank. I could have ended up in prison. I don't know. At the end of the day, I did what I had to do. I asked Das Torah, and I did what Das Torah says. That's what it says, Biyad Moshe va'Aaron. You go with the guidance of Moshe and Aaron. Now, what's strange over here is that if you look at Pasuk Gimel, it says, Vayisu me Ramses b'chor. Actually, let's stick with Pasuk Aleph for a second. Eila Masei b'nei Yisrael asher yotzu me'eretz Mitzrayim. Any of you ever went on a trip? Like, you're going on a trip for vacation. You ever been on a vacation trip? Huh? What's that? What's vacation? Yeah, or what's a trip? Yeah. But, you know, you go on a trip. So let's say we went to Florida. I did that once. We went to Florida. When I told people that we went, I said, we went to Florida for Pesach. I didn't say to my friends, we went from Chicago to Florida. They know we went from Chicago because I was living in Chicago. Who would say, when you say, yeah, we're going from Yerushalayim to Eilat. We're going from Yerushalayim to Tzfas. Yeah, I know where you're from because you're here in Yerushalayim. Why would you tell me that? So why does the Torah say, Asher yotzu me'eretz Mitzrayim? Eila masei b'nei yotzu me'eretz Mitzrayim. I know they left Mitzrayim. What's that? Close. That he pulled us out of Mitzrayim, number one. And it's also a credit to the Jewish people. What's the credit to the Jewish people? You know, Mitzrayim, it certainly was no party. But at least you knew what you had and what you didn't have. And now Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, guys, take some matzah and let's go to the desert. Yeah. Have you got anything? Any other suggestions? Any other options here? And they were willing to follow. Think about that. If you ever drive off to the Dead Sea, and you look on the side of the road, you got the desert, right? On the way to the Dead Sea. So it's on the side of you see the Judean desert over there. I mean, just picture, I've often thought about this on the way to the Dead Sea, looking at that desert, like, how far would I be willing to wander from the street? And here it's with a bag of matzah and out into the desert with a lot of desert ahead of you. Yet they followed him out. Me'eretz Mitzrayim. This is a credit to the Jewish people. That you left Mitzrayim and you were willing to follow Moshe out. Now, the Torah then throws in what seems to be an insignificant detail, because in Pasuk Gimel it says, "Vayisu me'Ramses b'chodesh harishon b'chamisha asar yom b'chodesh harishon mimocharas haPesach yotzu b'nei Yisrael biyad Rama la'enei kol Mitzrayim." The Jewish people went out with, how does he translate Yad Rama? An upraised hand, meaning they went out in a very confident manner. Doesn't necessarily mean they went out like this, never again. They go out with that never again fist up in the air, which, by the way, is not Judaism. That idea of never again. You've seen that in those never again posters. You know what the problem with never again is? Never again makes it sound like it was our fault that it happened once, and now we're not going to let it happen again. They went like sheep to the slaughter. which is an insult to the intelligence, besides to say nothing of the memory of all the martyrs. It's an insult to the intelligence of any human being, because everybody knows that when a few guys standing around with machine guns, everybody does exactly what they say. And this never again attitude is like as if we could have done something about it, number one. And number two, never again makes it sound, never again like, how do you know? Who told you? We don't have any guarantees. We don't know what never again. You sure? You absolutely sure? So they walked out of Egypt confidently, biyad Rama. Now the Torah throws in what would seem to be an insignificant detail. The Egyptians are in the middle of burying the firstborns. Remember, every single home, the Torah says, Ein bayis asher ein sham beis. There was no house that somebody didn't die. So the Egyptians are in the middle of burying their firstborns. I made a bracha before. The Egyptians are in the middle of burying their firstborns. And God carried out punishments against the Egyptian deities and the Egyptian gods. Why is the Torah telling us this? Why is the Torah telling us they were in the middle of burying their firstborns? What happened? Why? And then the next line says, they traveled from Ramses and they camped in a place called Sukkos. So why is the Torah throwing in this detail? The Egyptians were burying their dead. I mean, were we supposed to eat them? I mean, what would you expect to happen to the dead? Of course you bury them. So there are different approaches here. One of the approaches is, well, what do Egyptians often do with dead bodies?
They rub them, no?
They mummified them. They made mummies out of them. And so why didn't they make mummies out of these guys? So sometimes the mummies were actually preserved as gods, some of the mummies, or as idols or whatever it was. And here the Egyptians have already said, listen, our gods can't really help us over here. So we're not interested in, just bury them, number one. But more than that, where were they buried? Where were the Egyptians? Yeah, listen, you got a conflict over here. It says that the Bnei Israel, look at the previous pasuk, they went out confidently in full view of all the Egyptians. And then it says the Egyptians were burying their dead. Where were the Egyptians? Well, some were in Cairo, and some were in Alexandria, and some were in Luxor, and some were in, that's about the only 3 cities I know in Egypt right now. Some were in, all those other places in Egypt, right? So I understand. That means those Egyptians in Luxor and in Alexandria and in Cairo, they were all burying their dead. And they were watching the Bnei Israel leave. That means the Bnei Israel were not all in one location. And yet, within a day, all of them got to one location, and they traveled out together from Egypt. Now, how did all these Jews with old ladies and young ladies and babies and everything else, how did they all get to one location in one day? That's why the Torah says earlier, I carried you on the wings of eagles. That means miraculously they were brought together, says the Alshich. They were brought together and met in Ramses, and they all moved out. You can't do that in one day. Imagine getting everybody in Israel today with all the transportation that we have. Everybody, I want by tomorrow at 1 o'clock, everybody in Israel should meet at Ohr Somayach, we're leaving. Or everybody in America should meet in Chicago, we're coming to Israel. Better example. Everybody in America meet in Chicago with all the transportation and all the modern technology. This still wouldn't happen in a day. You can't get everybody together. You got this guy's got to close up his business, and this guy's got to get his kids out. His kids got to come back from camp, and this one doesn't. The airlines cancel their flights. How does it happen? This is a miraculous demonstration of God's ability. He brings the Jews together. Okay. Take a look at Pasuk Zayin. Vayisu me esam, vayashav al pi hachiros. They travel from a place called Esam and they go to another place called Pi hachiros. Asher al pnei Baal Tzafon. Now, I told you every one of these names, every one of these places has deeper ideas, things that are alluded to. And look very carefully at Vayisu me esam. the letters, they went from May, Asam, Aleph, Tuf, Mem. What, if you rearrange the letters Aleph, Tuf, Mem, what do you get? What Hebrew word do you get? Forget the fact that it's a Mem Sophis. Just assume. What's that? What? Emet. Aleph, Mem, Tuf is Emes. Vayisu me'esam, they traveled from truth. Vayashav al pi hachiros, by a free mouth. Pi is a mouth, chiros is freedom. And then one of the commentaries says over here, when a person veers off of truth, his mouth becomes hefker, starts lying all the time. If you veer off of truth at all, once you start veering off of truth, then your mouth becomes pi hachiros. Your mouth becomes a mouth that just you're willing to say anything, anytime. Doesn't have to be true, doesn't have to be loyal to anything. You just say whatever you want. So that's a person veers off. That's why it's very important when it comes to emes to not, they once asked Rav Chatzkel Levenstein. I don't know if I told you guys this. I was once walking here in Yerushalayim, and there were three Arabs started up with me, and I actually put all three of them in the hospital. Now I'm just exaggerating. I'm just embellished the story a little bit. It actually wasn't three; it was only one. And it wasn't Arabs; it was a little old lady. And I didn't put him in the hospital. She hit me over the head with her purse. But I just embellished the story a little bit. So somebody asked Rav Chatzkel Levenstein, is it forbidden or permissible to exaggerate? So he said, what do you mean by exaggerate? So he said, like sometimes people, embellish a story. He goes, that's not exaggeration, it's a blatant lie. Yeah. Oh, you called it embellishment. It's a lie. You just told a lie. And if a person doesn't stay there was a man, they used to ask a guy, he was in the hab, somebody say, hi, how are you? How's your wife? And he'd say, when I left the house, she was okay. He didn't want to say she's okay now, because he doesn't know. At the point that I left the house, she was okay. Probably she was okay because he left the house. Right. But at the point that I left the house, she was okay. He didn't want, why? Because he's staying meticulously loyal to the idea of honesty. That's what the Torah alludes to over here. Okay. Now, go down to Pasuk Tes Vav. Vayersu mirfidim, they left. Bottom Pasuk on page 918. The Jewish people were at a place called Refidim. Vayisu, page 918, bottom 918, bottom Pasuk. Is this the one? Yeah. Vayisu merafidim, vayachanu b'midbar Sinai. They travel from Refidim and they camp in Midbar Sinai. Now, vayisu midbar Sinai, vayachanu b'kivros hatava. Anything happen in Midbar Sinai? Anything significant happen?
The sea split.
What?
The sea split?
No, nothing of particular.
Anything happen in Midbar Sinai?
Yeah.
Besides the golden valley? The Torah was given. The Torah was given. Why doesn't the Torah mention it? Vayisu merfidim vayachnu b'midbar Sinai hoham vayisu b'midbar Sinai vayachnu b'kivras hatava. Why does the Torah mention over here that what do you call it? That even where other places there were certain things that were mentioned. In pasuk, if you take a look at pasuk Tes. And why over here, nothing. Doesn't say a word about the Torah being given in Sinai. So you can say, all right, listen, they're not really throwing in details over here. But the Mefarshim say that the Torah over here wants to emphasize, if it would say the Torah was given when we're talking about the history of the travels of the Jewish people, we might make the mistake of thinking about that was then. The Torah doesn't want us to make the mistake of think that Torah applied then. I mean, the Torah wants us to know the Torah applies now. And therefore it doesn't talk about it as something, it was an event that happened then. Now, what you do need to know is, if you notice in every single time it travel, it says, Vayisu merfidim vayachanu b'midbar Sina, Vayisu b'midbar Sina, vayachanu b'kivras hatava. They traveled from here and they camped over here. They traveled from here and they camped over here. Okay, so there are two very important lessons here. Lesson number one is that in our journey of growth, there are two stages. There's movement and there's solidifying our position. That means the fact that they camped somewhere, that's also part of our growth. And so when a person is growing in Yiddishkeit, well, should I take on another subject? Should I start learning Nach now? Well, you know what? You've just taken on Gemara. First solidify your Gemara learning, then you go on to the next level. Vayisu, I stepped up to the next level now. I stepped up to Halacha. Vayachanu, okay, master that. I took on davening 3 times a day for somebody who's never davened 3 times a day. Should I also take on Kabbalistic intent and Kabbalistic kavanas in my davening? No, you're not ready for that yet. Vayisu, vayachanu, 1 step at a time. You come to benching. Okay, I daven and I bench. Should I also say extra tehillim every day? No, you're not there yet. You know what? First do the things that you have to do. Vayisu, vayachanu. When a person is solidified in one area and you're comfortable with it, and you're not feeling stressed out and tense, which, by the way, can happen, which is generally the telltale sign that you've taken on too much too fast. There's no reason to be stressed out in Yiddishkeit. It's a serious business, but there's no reason to be stressed out. It reminds me of, I think it was Pete Rose, who was a baseball player who I'm sure you've all heard of. Is there anybody here who has not heard of Pete Rose? Oh boy. You never heard of Pete Rose? Well, you have an excuse. Pete Rose is the guy who had the most hits all time in baseball, but he never was elected to the Hall of Fame because turned out he was gambling. He was betting on baseball games, so they stopped him. Okay, but Pete Rose was out there. There was once a game against one of the other teams, and so the players talked to each other on the field. And Pete Rose turned to one of the guys. The guy, he's standing at second base, and he says to the shortstop from the other team, says, "Hey, isn't this fun? We're playing baseball. We actually get paid for this." And these are some of the most highly paid, overpaid people on the planet. And he said, "Hey, isn't this fun?" That's how Yiddishkeit should be. It should be fun. It should be fun. It should be enjoyable. We're doing it. We're going to get paid big time, more than Pete Rose. You get paid a lot for this. Enjoy what we're doing. Okay, it's not always fun to be on an airplane and not have your kosher meal. It's not fun. Doesn't always have to. Tisha B'Av is coming up. It's not fun. The 3-way, the 9 days are coming up. We can't eat meat for 9 days. It's not fun. Okay, that's also part of it. But at least we should enjoy our service. So good, we get to show our devotion. If we're tense and nervous about it, then something's wrong. Something's wrong. That's often a telltale sign. That's the first rule of Vayisu Vayachanu. Vayisu Vayachanu, number 1, solidify your position, number 1. Number 2, there was a second there. I forgot what number 2 is. Just 1 second. There's another idea here. There were 2 ideas here. Vayisu Vayachanu, 1 second. Vayisu, Vayachanu, Vayisu, Vayachanu. Oh boy, I forgot. It just slipped me. Give me 1 second because I have it written down here. Yes, yes. Some of these places that are mentioned, good things happen, and some of the places not such good things happen. The Jewish people had ordeals. They had challenges. Some of the places, the mun came down. Good things happen. Person has to know that on our journey in growth, there are going to be times where things are not going our way spiritually. I'm not talking about materially. That's always like that. Some days you make money, some days you lose money, some days. Here we're talking about where even spiritually, sometimes a person feels they're connecting. Sometimes a person feels I'm really into it. I'm really catching. You just feel connected. There are other days that you just wake up and like, what am I putting these black straps on for? What am I doing this? Why am I studying about subjects that have nothing to do with my practical life? Why am I doing that? And therefore, a person has to know that the names of these places and the fact that the Torah talks about these journeys is an indication to us that, yeah, that's going to happen. You're going to have days where you run dry. You're going to have days where Yiddishkeit feels dry. So what? And every time you go to work, work is just a thrill. Every guy is a dentist. Every day is a 10, and he still got to work. And then a person matures and realizes with experience, yeah, it's going to happen. And not only is it going to happen, I'm actually going to get through it. And I'm going to have those those highs or those connection periods. And just maturity. Sometimes in life, didn't it ever happen to you? You're in a bad mood. Something happens, they're in a bad mood. And every time a person's in a bad mood, it just feels like it's going to be forever. And it's not forever. It could change in an hour and it could change in 2 days. The person just feels blah. I'm not talking about a person's physically ill. A person feels blah. And by the way, it's in relationships also. Even in a marriage. Sometimes marriages hit a stale spell. You just feel blah. So what? So you feel blah. So what? It goes away. Person has had enough experience to know that you just wait it out and then you're going to feel better in a couple of days. You'll feel better, which usually means you made some money. That's the, okay. Now go to Perek. I'm all for blunged. See? That's what happens. I'm in a blah. Take a look at Perek Lamed Hey. All the way to Lamed Hey. So here, the Torah, it's on page 926. So here the Torah talks about our subject in Gemara. And the Torah talks about the idea of the cities of refuge. And these cities of refuge are going to be the cities that are given to the Levium. If you take a look at the top of 928. Ve'esa orim asher titnu la'Leviim, the cities that you're going to give to the Levites. The Levites did not get a portion like the other tribes got a portion in Eretz Yisrael. So it says, Ve'esa orim asher titnu la'Leviim, you'll give these cities to the Levites, es sheish orei hamiklat, asher titnu lanu shama rotzeach, 6 cities of refuge where unintentional murders are going to flee to. Ve'alehem titnu arboim ushtaim ir, and then there are going to be another 42 that are given. There are going to be 6 main ones, 3 in Eretz Yisrael and 3 on the other side of the Yarden, and then you're going to have another 42 cities. And at every crossroads, they had a sign that said Miklat, Miklat. At every crossroads, that means if Ruvain unintentionally killed Shimon, he starts moving. And when he gets to a crossroads, there are going to be signs that say Miklat, Miklat, this way to the cities of refuge. So, first of all, does anybody know anything significant about the number 6 and 42? What's significant about 6 and 42 besides Yochanan? What's significant about 6 and 42? Anybody? 6 is a multiple of 42, because times 7. Yeah. Right? 6 times 7 is 4. How do you like that, guys? See? Don't tell me I didn't learn nothing in high school. The 6 is a multiple. What else is significant about 6 and 40? What do you say, Yochanan? 4 words or less. 6 and 42, what's the significance? There are 6 words in the first pasuk of Kriyat Shema. And there are 42 words in the paragraph of V'ahavta. Baruch Shem Kol Malchus is added later. What's the significance? What's that got to do with the cities of refuge? What's that? So, why do they represent Shema Yisrael? Oh no, I just killed the guy. Why? What's the connection? Well, okay. Well, not everybody goes to the city of refuge. Only guys who've killed people unintentionally.
42 cities.
The 42 cities are also not for everybody. People live in their own places. It's only for cities of refuge. What's the significance to create? What's the connection to Kriya Shema? The answer is that when a person kills somebody, how did a person end up if somebody killed somebody unintentionally, that means there's a flaw in this person's character. Why should he go out? A guy goes out to the forest and he swings a hatchet. There are different people. A lot of people that would never happen to. A lot of people would never happen to. People wouldn't go out there. This guy goes out, grabs a hatchet, oops, boink, doink, right in somebody else's forehead. They nail somebody. There's another person who checks it 3 times to make sure that it's solidly on there in order to make sure that he doesn't accidentally kill anybody. The answer is that a person who's reckless and a person who has not got that respect for human life, or that carelessness or recklessness towards human life, that means that this person, if he really had a solid enough connection with God, his connection with God is obviously tenuous, because if he had the connection with God, you'd have respect for the life that God created. So he's obviously drifted away. What's our statement of connection? You're right, the Torah connects us. Shema is our statement of connection. So the 42 cities, the 6 cities and 42 cities, where the purpose is to go live with the Levium, so that the Levium could teach him how to be a better Jew. And therefore, it's connected to the Shema. The Shema is the Dveikus. That's the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This person needs to re-solidify his connection. But here you have a different question. And with this we end. Why is it that at the crossroads to the cities of refuge, you have Miklat written? Why is it, the Jewish people went up to Yerushalayim 3 times a year for Aliyah L'Regel? 3 times a year, all the men went up to Yerushalayim. The 4th time was Rosh Hashanah. They went to Uman. But 3 times a year, they went up. That was a joke. But joke, laugh. The 3 times a year, they went up to Yerushalayim. Why weren't there signs at the crossroad that said Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim? Why are there only signs at the crossroad that say Miklat, Miklat? All right, you could answer, the practical answer. This guy's running for his life. He can't afford to not know where he's going. The next of kin is chasing him to kill him, which he has a right to do. So he's got to know. That's a practical answer. There's a different answer. A guy who has killed somebody unintentionally, in my experience, there are people who are, you also grew up, there's always some kid on the block who was accident prone, right? There's always some kid who was accident prone. They're always walking around with a splint or stitches or crutches or something. So what they call accident prone, we call a Vildachaya. He was always the kid. He was always the kid who always, is jumping, running, driving too fast, doing something. He was reckless. You're a redneck. If you got a relative, and the last thing he ever said was, "Hey, y'all, watch this." So, there's always some kid on the block. There's some kid on the block who was, there are people who are halachically accident prone. They're always the guys walking into the room, oops, make the wrong bracha, didn't see that it didn't have a hechsher. They're always, a guy who's killed somebody unintentionally means there's a flaw in his character. Kosh Baruch Hu brings about, this guy needs a big atonement now. You got to go to the city of refuge. You're obviously not doing well in your Yiddishkeit. If you don't realize that you shouldn't be driving a car fast in the neighborhood with a bunch of little children around, there's something wrong with you. I didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. I didn't mean it. If you swung a hatchet recklessly, there's something wrong with you right now. You know what? You're a negative influence. We don't want you talking to other people. We want you, when you get to a crossroads, we don't want you asking for directions. I don't know what kind of influence you can have on other people. We just want you to get to the city of refuge. Do not pass go. Do not collect 100. Just get there. And don't get me connected with other people. We don't want your negative influence spreading. To go to Yerushalayim to the contrary. You go to Yerushalayim, guy who loads up his backpack. He's got a big wagon full of produce, and he's on his way up to Yerushalayim for the Aliyah L'Regel, and he's bringing Bikurim. And I say, hey, Kalman Zalman, where are you going? We're going to Yerushalayim. Come on, join us in, Baruch Schnitzel. Come along, And you want that, because he's doing something good. Something good is positive. We want that spreading. And therefore, to go to Yerushalayim, there are those signs on the crossroads. We got to get a whole group together. We'll talk to people. Join. Mikla, you're a negative person. There's something wrong. Get out of here. Get out as fast as you can. Don't talk to anybody. Just get there. All right. That's it, boys.